Monchi's podcast.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate that you're doing this with me and to have you on the first episode of this podcast.
Oh, it's an honor. Thank you. Honestly, it means a lot that you've asked. I'm glad to be here. So thanks.
Yeah, I was listening a lot to podcasts in the last months, also related to music production, and I felt like the need to do something similar because it gave me a nice companionship in my day-to-day life, and just to have some people to listen to talking about music production related stuff can be really nice, and it creates for me this sense of community which I now also want to create.
Yeah, I think it's the most important thing in music making is community, and I think as electronic musicians, especially for like a kind of more niche genre like Psytrance, it's something that can feel lacking, and where there is the community, it almost kind of can feel cliquey in a way. Whereas, like, if you're in a band, you've got that community in the band, and then you meet other bands and you join their community as well. But I think when you're sitting in your own studio working on your own music, and it can sometimes feel a bit solitary. So I think it's really good to have these podcasts and groups, and we can chat about the music that we make and have that community.
Yeah. Do you ever played in a band? I think I saw you somewhere on a picture with a trumpet. There obviously is a bass guitar or a guitar in the background. So
yeah, I've played in lots of bands. I play in band Mango Rescue Team. We're called. There's some people from all over the world in it, and we do like Latin American kind of tropical party music. We play a lot of festivals around the UK and stuff, and it's great fun, really good fun. But yeah, I've always been in bands as well.
That sounds really cool. And also at the moment, or is this a thing of the past?
Yeah, at the moment too. Maybe less so than before. Partly because I moved away from the city where we were based, and also because some of the band members went to have kids, which is incredibly selfish of them. But yeah, we still try and do 1 or 2 festivals a year, and yeah, we're still writing songs and stuff, so it's good. But I kind of with my trombone playing, I tend to now do more like occasional things. So like last year, I was involved in a show because Edinburgh's got a lot of theatre in it and a lot of shows, and they were doing a production where they needed a brass band. So I played in the brass band for that show, which was really good fun, really great fun. So I tend to do, the band's still going, but I'm doing more one-off things as well. What about you? I can see there's a ukulele in the background.
Yeah, I like for me it's more a thing of the past. When I was a teenager, I was playing guitar, and also in a band we make like, I don't know, rock music in general, easy power chord music, maybe some more nuanced chords in between, but nothing too special. But yeah, man,
that's all you need.
It definitely had its vibe. Yeah.
Just rock out some power chords. That's all you need.
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we had a great time. We used to go on holidays, like in at the house of a grandmother from one of the band members, which she was just using for holidays. We brought all our stuff there and spent a week with recording all different stuff, talking a lot of shit. just had a nice teenager band time there.
Nice.
But yeah,
that sounds amazing.
But yeah, after some years when I got older, I was not so much anymore into practicing so much for the guitar, and I got pretty lazy, and eventually they kicked me out. But yeah, it was also like I went like on a long journey, on a travel to Morocco, like for some months. And when I came back, they were like, "Yeah, we replaced you. It's okay, isn't it?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's okay." But yeah, anyway, I thought it also would be nice to introduce you a little bit at this point of the podcast, just for people who are not familiar, like with who you are and what you're doing. So yeah, maybe you want to tell a little bit about your projects or
Yeah. So I'm Jack. I get my main project is Act One, signed to Bom Shanka Music. Was on Digital Shamans before that. Yeah, it's been going for about 10 years now. Released 3 EPs, 1 album, working on another album. Played lots of gigs, had lots of fun, and I am just a music making nerd, really. I also have a project with Yosh Eritas, Eritas is on Sangoma. He's an absolutely incredible producer. That project's called Likitu. And I have, alongside the band I was just talking about, I have a spin-off like world music, electronic music project called Mango Disco.
nice. And I also read on your Twitch bio that you had a drum bass project as well.
Yeah, that's right. I started off before I found Psytrance. I got into making electronic music through drum and bass. I was a drum and bass nerd, like properly. I was like collecting all the vinyls. I was like memorizing all like the label release codes and all of this, and I had to have every release and was like judging them all. Like I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But yeah, I was making drum and bass before I found Psytrance and the amazing scene that there is in this community.
Yeah, I'm not so familiar with drum and bass, but I just read that you were there also on a podcast from Noisia. They seem to be like one of the biggest name in drum and bass music. So I guess you were also like quite successful with this drum bass project.
Yeah, it was a weird one with my drum and bass project, because even though in some ways I was successful, I kind of almost didn't really do anything. So I had I had this track played by Noisia on their podcast. That track also got played on Radio 1, BBC Radio 1 in the UK. And then, but it was a weird one. I think I was, I don't know if you were in my stream when I was talking about it. That was the track which got released under a different name.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, so someone I was working with him quite a lot. I was playing gigs for him, and I was helping him learn production. This was when I was like 17. Yeah, so he was coming up from London, and he was sitting with me in the studio, and I was teaching him production, and then we were making tunes together. But then he took one of the tracks that we made, and he released it under his own name.
Oh, okay.
On a big label, on a big label, and this has all kind of been semi sorted out since. Not really, but semi sorted out since. But yeah, it got released on a label, Dispatch Records. And long story short, the track did really well, and I didn't get any credit for it. And so we had a big falling out, and I had a big falling out with the record label as well, which was a big shame for me because I was young and I completely adored this record label. They were like my idols, and they were really rude with me. They were completely out of order considering the situation. And I had afterwards, I got written apologies, and I got a quote unquote confession. It was saying yes, this happened. We apologize. We're sorry. But yeah, that was the track that got played by Noisia and on Radio 1. So it was a big shame for me. And that was kind of, because of that situation, is kind of why I came to Psytrance, because I felt so hurt by that situation that I wanted to step away from drum and bass for a while. You know, is they had been my mates, they'd been my good friends, and we'd been working together, and then this happened, and I was just like, nah, I need some space, I need to go away. So I went to Boom Festival just by myself in the end, and so that was when I found Psytrance like that. So just kind of carried on with it after that, because I just had a great time. Because yeah, actually the first Psytrance track I made after that happened, I met Al Shanka, and this was long before I was signed to Bom Shanka. Yeah, this was when I was like 18. I met him and I was like, oh, Al, you're Dirty Sappy, that's amazing. And then he was like, oh, you're Act One. Yeah, you made that track. And I was like, what the fuck? And it turns out Chris Rich had found the track and sent it to him. And I was like,
Great.
man, this was my first ever Psytrance tune. Like,
So this happened when you were 18. Like, how old are you now? Just to get a sense of how many years back it.
29 now.
Ah, okay. Yeah, so 11 years. Sick. Yeah, man. The story with the record label. It sounds really like Ghost. Like you have Ghost produced like a really successful track.
Accidentally, yeah.
But yeah, man, it's crazy. Like when you start to get into the scenes which you really adore. But I have to feel like in music business in general, it's looking really different on the surface than what sometimes happen behind the scenes. And it's also one of the reasons I want to do this podcast, to give like people who are just starting out a little bit of a sense what's actually looking like. And yeah, so I think it's really cool that you shared the story.
Yeah, and actually, I think that's a really good idea, and I think it's because you can't possibly imagine it. That's the thing, right? You can't know what it's like until you're involved in it, and it's one of those where, like, whatever you're expecting it to be, it won't be like that, and there's. I don't know. Obviously, I haven't been involved in other industries in the same way, but you know, I've had the jobs that I've had and stuff. Things have felt very organized, and music just isn't. Like, you've just got to expect chaos, and things will work out. You know, it's not things work, but it's just the whole thing is unorganized, chaotic, and brilliant fun.
Hey man, this reminds me of a story, because like I used to be also promoter of Psytrance parties for quite a long time, and just like this one time we had this guy from France, maybe you know him, Ceridium or I don't know.
Yeah.
And yeah, he came to Germany, and I imagine on social media it's like, hey, look, I have this gig in another country and whatever. And then like when he so he should fly to Frankfurt, and then from there he need to catch another flight to a city close to mine, to Leipzig. And yeah, then the situation was like this, that he arrived there at like 10 in the evening or whatever, and it was snowing a lot. So they canceled all the flights. So yeah, I was like totally desperate. The event was already starting, and I was sitting in the backstage, glued to my phone, and yeah, having chats with him all the time of what to do. And I was like, yeah, dude, man, we cancel this gig, like look for a hotel, and we do this somewhere again. But this guy, he had like this this crazy mindset, which still is inspiring me. He wrote this one sentence to me like, bro, we only have solutions. And I was like, okay, man, I will check some trains. And Frankfurt, from the city where I live, it's like 4 hours with the train. And it was already like, I don't know, 11 in the night at this moment. And I checked my phone for train connections. And I was like, dude, you have like 10 minutes to catch your train. It's the only option we can make work this out, so that you arrive at least in this night in my city. And if you manage to get this train, we can have a talk of how to continue. And man, this crazy dude, he made it into the train, and I was also like having these concerns of he doesn't get to sleep so well, because also his next flight will departure at the next day after the event. Anyway, eventually he arrived like at 6 in the morning. Like he was used to play at 3 in the night or something like this. At 6 in the morning, perfectly in time to play the closing set at the party.
Yes.
And yeah, then we had a great time afterwards. But yeah, this is just an example of how chaotic it can be. And even afterwards, like he when he wanted to take his flight back, there was some problem with the airplane ticket, and he was calling me in the evening. I had like a super hangover, and he was like, "Dude, I'm surrounded by 6 policemen. Like something's wrong here." And yeah, then I had a talk to the police officers, and yeah, he got a hotel at the airport and then took a flight at the next day. There was just some technical issues with the ticket. But yeah, anyway, this is how chaotic it can get.
That's it. It's always chaos, but it always works. Well, normally always works.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So, what have you been up to lately? I heard you were saying something about doing your second album. Do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Yeah. I figured it was probably time. So my last album was 4 years ago. 4 years ago it will come out now. Which I guess, we lost. It came out right into lockdown. So I did an album launch party for it, and that was the last weekend that anything was allowed to happen before everything got locked down. So it was terrible timing.
Yeah.
It was really bad timing, but hey ho, it is what it is. So I thought 4 years later, it's time for another one. I felt like I was ready for it. I felt like I needed that push for myself, because I work well when I have a project. If I don't have a project that I'm really working towards, I don't do as well. Like I still have fun doing it, but I know within myself that what I have done could be better. So I figured, I was like, do I do another EP? Nah, let's do it. It's time to do an album. But I wanted it to not just be a collection of Psytrance tunes, because I love albums like that, as I'm a Psytrance fan, of course I do. And I know that's essentially what they are. You're making this collection of tracks for DJs to play and to show promoters and show DJs what your sound is, and give them a selection of here's a bunch of tracks you can play. This is what my set will sound like. That's basically what it is. But I don't think albums should just be that. So I wanted to give it a concept. So I've so I thought about everything, and I was thinking about what is it, because I was a classically trained musician. I did all the grades, I did all the lessons and stuff like that, but I was like, what was it that made me want to make electronic music? And for me, it was, I guess, control. I guess it was because you are the songwriter, you are the instrument creator, essentially, because you have to completely design each sound. You know, you pick up an instrument, you know what sound that instrument makes, but we have to think about what sound we want that instrument to make. And then we have to write the song, and then we have to arrange the song, we have to produce the song, engineer the song, you know, and it's just all these levels. So we're like, and I was thinking about it in classical music terms, and so we're like the composers, the arrangers, the players, and the conductors all in one as music producers. And that's such a unique situation to be in, which no one's ever been in before. You know, like before the 90s, no one had ever been in this situation before. And I think it's awesome. And I think that was what was exciting me about it. So, and then I thought about how I wanted to explore all the different bits of electronic music that have played a part in my life. So I decided that I was going to do it like almost like a symphony. So in a symphony you have different movements, and each movement will have its own identity, its own theme, and its own character. And so I wanted the album to have 3 different movements, which all had their own theme, identity, and character, because actually that's a lot of what we do. We can just make some kick drums and some sounds, but actually what makes a track is giving that track character. I think that's what people like in a track, is when you can identify a character in it. So I wanted to do that. So I wanted to split the album up as well and have like interludes, which were throwing back to like the different influences in my life. So like I've got like the intro, which will be like a chill out ambient thing, because I used to have a chill out and ambient project which I did a lot with, and I loved it and I really miss it, and kind of that's my main musical love in the psychedelic music scene, was the chill out stuff. So I wanted to have a chill out track on there. And then the next interlude is going to be I'll call it what it is. I'm ripping off a producer called Edit, who I know you know and you're a fan of.
Yeah, you were telling about this on your stream, and I just checked it and I really like it.
Yeah, it's amazing. That whole album's just incredible, and it's so unique that there's nothing that sounds like it, and it's like 20 years old now.
Yeah.
That album, and it could have been made today, and it still would have been awesome. Like,
yeah, man, like the drums are like crazy. Like I really like these snares with this metallic kind of layered click on it. I don't know, it's sounding like at the checkout in the supermarket, these checkout machines, like these old ones, they make like this ring or cling sound, and I had the feeling like something like this here layered on top of some.
Yeah, I know what you mean, actually.
So anyway, yeah, we're back to your album.
Of course, the other one that I had to do was a drum and bass track on the album. And these interludes are only going to be like 2 or 3 minutes. They're not going to be whole tracks, because that wasn't the point. But they're going to be there. And they're going to split up each section of the album so that I've got that movement. And you can actually listen to it as an album as well as it just being, here's 10 Psytrance tunes.
Hey man, I think this is super cool, because I always was wondering, maybe it's just my personal view on the stuff, but I rarely manage to listen to a whole Psytrance album at once.
Well,
it's like
same.
not the music, when I'm sitting on my couch and like, let's go 1 hour Psytrance straight and just listening. It's more like a thing for the dance floor and stuff. So I was always wondering about what's the concept or the intention behind those albums, because I didn't get it so much. But what you are explaining, what your ideas behind your album and the concept makes much more sense to me. Yeah.
But I mean, it's purely self-indulgent. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it doesn't. If someone wants to listen to a Psytrance album, they'll listen to a Psytrance album. And that's great. That is great, and I know people do, and I used to, and this, I know it won't make my album any better than anyone else's, but it's purely for my own projects and my own. It's self-indulgence. That's what it is. But I hope that it makes a difference to the experience of listening to it.
Yeah. I think it's a really cool idea, and also something different than what I'm used to see and hear when I'm checking some Psytrance albums. And I just was wondering, I know about your project with Eritas. Are you guys still in touch and doing something, or yeah?
We've actually we've had an EP on the works for over a year. Over a year. I keep meaning to have a call with him, but he's super busy these days. He's like working as a lecturer in
I know.
university doing like film scoring and stuff. So he's always busy, and he's just rebuilding his studio at the moment. So hopefully once his studio is up and finished, we're making plans, because we need to get it finished. People are asking us. Daxi from Sangoma is asking me when it's going to be finished, and so we need to get it done. But yeah, there's stuff in the works.
Yeah, really cool. Crazy side hustle at Sangoma Records. Yeah, but I've also I wrote some things down I thought might be interesting to talk about, and another thing on my list is that you're like promoting a little bit that you've been sober since some years. Do you maybe also want to talk a little bit about this, and just if you're feeling comfortable to talk about this on this podcast? If not, we don't need to.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I do try to mention it sometimes, but not because I want other people to be like, whoa, look at him, like I'm so proud. It's like, you should be proud of him. Like, it's not like that at all. I sometimes worry it comes across that way, but actually it's just because when I see in other people's conversations someone say, oh, well, actually, I haven't drunk any alcohol for 10 years, and I do that, and I'm like, oh, cool, there are other people in the scene who are doing that. And that makes me feel less isolated with it, because actually it's a really isolating thing. If you think about how much of our social lives revolves around drinking alcohol and other things, if you're into other things as well, but it takes up a lot of people's social lives. And suddenly I was like not going to pubs. Suddenly I was like wanting to go to bed early because, and that was only temporary. I can stay up all night if I'm having a great time, of course, but it's not like, it wasn't the same way as like, oh, after work on Friday night, yeah, we'll go to the pub with some mates, so it can be a really isolating thing. So it made me feel better about it, seeing that other people were doing it. So if I see someone else say like, oh, I've managed to do 2 weeks without smoking weed, I will always comment on that. Just be like, nice one. And I will say like, yeah, I'm coming up for 2 years, because I will say that it's over 2 years now actually, but I'll say that not because I'm wanting to show off that I've done 2 years, but because I want people to know, like I needed people to let me know that it was possible for you to have a social life. It was possible for you to be making music and it not be about the booze, about the drugs, because I needed that. That's why I do it. It's just because I needed it.
I think it's really it's a good idea to, because in the scenes it's a lonesome thing to be sober, and yeah, obviously a lot of people are struggling with drugs and stuff. So I think it's good to show also that it's possible without, because if somebody's into Psytrance, we all know these samples about drugs in the music, and yeah, it's definitely got its place in this culture. But yeah, I think,
absolutely.
but for me, it was like for years I tend to glorify it too much and to identify with it too much. And when you want to take a step back, it's cool to see that there are also other people taking a step back.
But it's a purely personal thing, you know. Like I have no feelings whatsoever about other people drinking and taking drugs. Of course, they're just having fun and living their lives and doing what they want to do. It didn't work for me.
Yeah.
And that's fine. You know, it didn't work for me. I didn't like myself when I was drinking. I didn't make good decisions when I was drinking. I know it didn't work for me. But many people it does work for forever, and that's absolutely great. It definitely has its place, and you know, I won't pretend that the scene isn't based around drug culture and came from drug culture, because that would be foolish to do so. So I completely respect it, and you know, and with drugs especially, you know, I don't feel the same way about booze, but I definitely feel.
What a booze! Sorry, I'm not so.
Sorry, booze is alcohol. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's English slang. So
We got this out of the way.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, but definitely, it still hugely influences you as a person, or me as a person. The influence is definitely still there, and I won't deny that at all. But yeah, I know that it didn't work for me, and that was the only decision I needed to make. And anyone else can obviously do whatever they want, and I'm not going to try and change anyone's mind about doing that. But
yeah, there can be some points in life where life is shutting all the red flags at you. I had something similar with smoking. I quit like some months ago, but just after I went to a festival and I had like two packs of tobacco, and it was like 3 days of festival. And after the festival, these 2 packs, like 60 gram of rolling tobacco, were empty, and I had like a pain in my throat after the festival I never experienced before. It was like pain, like a bruise, but in my throat every time I was swallowing. And I was like, I never experienced this before. This is clearly a red flag, and it's clearly coming from smoking for 3 days, 2 packs of tobacco, and I'm done with it now. It's like, I guess, yeah. And since that, but I needed this intense sensation, or like to really overdo it to realize how bad this addiction was for me, because otherwise I still can make some mental gymnastics and be like, oh yeah, it's okay like this, whatever, it works. But yeah, because I was doing it so much, I realized I'm done with it for now. I hope forever, but I obviously don't know. But
I think that's the major thing, you know, like you said, you hope. And I think that's the biggest thing, because if you want to be done with it, then it's a lot easier to be done with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's also something different than when you just like in your head know that it's wrong what you're doing, to when you feel that it's wrong what you're doing. I don't know if I know it's like people tell me it's not okay, and I know people tell me it's not okay, I should stop, but just thinking like this, it's definitely not enough, and it never worked out. needed to feel it the harder way.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, isn't it? Like, even if you know what other people are telling you is right, it won't be right until you come to that conclusion yourself.
Yeah, and especially with drugs, I have the feeling that I can talk to friends or whatever, or friends could talk to me, or my parents could talk to me like, dude, stop smoking so much weed or whatever. But yeah, I don't give a shit until I realized it on my own that it's making things or some things really difficult.
How do you feel like do you feel like it's changed your music production at all?
This is a interesting question, but I think not really. I mean, it was definitely a change, and when I quit smoking weed, I was like before, oh, the stuff it inspires me so much and it sparks my creativity. Where when I just smoke a joint, and I also know a lot of people who are like, and I couldn't imagine making music without smoking weed or whatever. But I think it's just depends on what you're used to, and yeah. So after a while, I get used to making music sober, and maybe it's a little bit different. Maybe some decisions, or I would make some different decisions if I were high, but I think it's not a major difference. No. Well, what you're thinking about it?
I think, yeah, it's hard to tell because, especially, because I guess for you as well, like music production is just something that we've always, we do. It's something that I feel like we've both come to the conclusion that this is like what we're really, really interested in. This is what we want to be doing with our spare time, so they feel like separate things. And I feel like if the difference, if anything, has been in motivation, because I feel like if you're sat in the studio and you're smoking weed, it's easy just to get kind of stuck in it and locked in that zone, which can feel like motivation. But actually, I feel like having stopped, motivation comes from other places, and motivation comes from ideas. And like outside of music as well, other things to do with music, like, Audiocorner and stuff like that, yeah. So I don't think it's made as much of a difference to the music making, but the way that I feel motivated for it, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I agree on this. Yeah, it's also like I think this is what's also is like challenging when you switch from smoking weed to not smoking weed, where making music that this motivation or get locked into the zone, it's not happening anymore from smoking weed. You need to figure out a new way, and this can be challenging for some time, but I think if you're really
I just made a
passionate.
track for ages.
Mm.
And I didn't make any music for quite a while after stopping.
Yeah. I also I was not 100% sure because I also stopped making music, but I had the feeling you gave it a break somewhere in the past as well, wasn't it like that?
Yeah, well, it was exactly that amount of time, really. I did I started making music again beforehand, but one of the things about me, like stopping drinking and stopping drugs and everything, and I stopped doing gigs for well over a year. Nearly 2 years I didn't do any gigs for.
Yeah. And this was like the amount of time which it took for you until you could get started again with making Psytrance in particular, or
Yeah, well, I started making tracks again because I still wanted to be making music. That was never in question, but I didn't feel, because of like the situations and because of almost not quite trusting myself to. That's not quite right, because I did trust myself, but I knew that I wouldn't feel comfortable. So yeah, it was a choice, but I think it was a good thing as well. I think it made me more motivated for making music.
Yeah.
Because I had other reasons to be motivated for making music other than I just want to get gigs. You know, I feel like I'd got into that rabbit hole of only making music because I wanted to get more gigs, which I don't think is healthy.
Yeah.
I completely understand it, and I can see how I fell into that trap. But I think it was good to be like, okay, I am not doing any gigs. I am making music because I want to make music.
Yeah, that's really cool. This is also something, which I realized what I was doing, or like to be really grinding to get successful, to get some gigs and to play there. And I think like it's totally okay to have this mindset, and also it's this music is like in particular Psytrance, it's made for dance floors and it's made for gigs. But yeah, for myself, I feel that this mindset was like really toxic for me, that I was like really impatient about stuff, and a mixture with social media, like seeing everybody is publishing their tracks, their EPs, and being successful with this. And it was really toxic to me to be in this grind. And I also in the last months or whatever, I rewire a little bit my intentions of why I'm doing this, and what are my goals with this, and to just to take it easy in first place, and not to do this to be successful. Like in first place, I want to do this to celebrate it from time to time with other people on the dance floor, to have like this ceremony. But I don't want to do it anymore like for the likes or whatever. And I really got the feeling I was in a kind of social media trap. And but I think this path is like not going towards happiness, or or don't fulfill yourself as much as you might think.
I'm the worst to it. I'm the worst to it. Like I am ashamed of myself with how bad I am for like the social media pressure on myself. You know, like if something, to the extent where if something isn't getting very many likes, I'll delete it, and then it's just like it's a reaction that I don't even do consciously. It's like, and I think back and like, why did I do that? What was the point in me doing that other than this just like conditioning? And you know, there's conditioning for like, oh, if it's worth it, then people would have liked it, you know, and it's not good, which is. But I think the streaming has helped with that.
Yeah, it's also the reason I want to get started with streaming. I think it's more what I want to experience when I share my passion. I think also I'm really I try to be not like in a complete black and white thinking, but I'm really mad recently about social media, because it's like it combines some things I think should not be combined at all. Like what I need as an artist, or what I think is really, really useful as an artist, is like to share my art with the people out there through the internet. and this is what I use social media for. But at the same time, it's like the by far the most greatest distributor of informations, also a lot of misinformations, and it's fucking addictive. So, and I think these things together, like I need it for my promotion. I get like kind of my news from this platform, and I'm addicted to it. This this is just toxic. I mean, I really want to step back from this, because I in the last months I had like a harder phase in life, harder period in life, with a lot of not so nice stuff happening, and I was realizing that the algorithm in social media realized this somehow, and realized that was really engaging with content, which would make me even more desperate, because reading some comments on some political reels or whatever, and like comment sections on political stuff in social media, it won't change my opinion in a more productive way or whatever. It's I just get even more fucked up, and I realized that through my hard period, social media was even amplifying this hard period by more, that I was like, what the fuck, the world is going down, there's no hope in this world and whatever. And like, I think if I think like this will manifest. And when I move away more from social media and seeing what's actually also good in day-to-day life, this will more manifest also in the world. And that's why I think.
So what's the answer then? Because as you said, as musicians, as producers, you need to be on social media. There's no way of getting around it. You need it. You need to be sharing your music, and that's that is these days the only way to do it. So what's the answer? How do you separate yourself from, because you've got the other extra issue of the way social media has evolved. So you look at how now everyone, I guess because of YouTube, because of TikTok, everyone wants these parasocial relationships. Everyone wants to be like involved. Everyone wants to feel like they know you as a person. So even in a scene like ours, like you see, it's really hard to separate yourself, because people don't just want to see, your music. They want to see you and feel like they know you. And it's really hard to not let that infiltrate your everyday life, because it is your everyday life.
Sure.
So what's the answer? Is there like,
I mean, if I could afford it, man, I would hire somebody to just sort this out of my life. But
in a heartbeat?
it's obviously not a realistic option for me. So yeah, I don't know. At least I think the first step was for me to just realize that this is going on, and to get one step back, like to even make little breaks. So for example, I deinstall the app from my phone, so I just use my computer for now. So yeah, to not have it all the time in my pocket. I think it's an advancement I made here. And also to stream on Twitch, even if it's also some social media stuff. I think it has not the same mechanisms as Facebook or Instagram.
Well, that was something I was gonna mention. Was, I think, what the opportunity that gives, like I said earlier, I think the streaming has helped, and that's the reason I think it's helped, is because it gives it positivity. because the only reason for doing that is the sharing of information. It can only be a positive thing. You know, you're not going to get arguments about politics. You're not going to get like, oh, why aren't I playing at Boom or whatever, jealousy, which makes you feel bad about yourself. You're avoiding, it gets rid of those sections of it, and it gives you a set time. Like, this is what I am doing for my presence, my social media presence, and it is a positive thing. I am sharing information and having genuine conversations with people, and I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, I agree. And also for me, it's like if I have something really personal where I'm really hyped on, like some latest production technique I discovered or whatever, and instead doing like a post on social media and to get these likes and these dopamine drops from these likes, which will even attach me more to it and to with a spark again that I should do another thing like this and post another video to get this feeling of those likes again. I think it's much nicer, or I imagine it to be much nicer to share those things on screen or on a stream. So yeah, it's detached from these like mechanisms, which I think this. I mean, there are like a lot of studies on social media and what it's doing with the brain, and it's like this dopamine stuff. It's a less strong effect, but similar to cocaine. So I think it's clearly some stuff which should be taken seriously. And sometimes I also feeling really weird when I scroll through social media and imagine like all those people are like kind of addicted to these platforms, and this is how they behave in their addiction. I mean, it's clearly a really over exaggerated picture I'm drawing here, but yeah, it's just coming to my mind, and I feel like I want to just discover different possibilities of this, feel this connection to people in the scenes, and to establish like some different platforms. I think this is the most realistic way to escape at least the mechanisms of Facebook and Instagram to spray the platforms, to have like a wider variety, like Twitch, for example, or like doing this podcast. I think it will relax things a little bit, at least for me.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I've found that. I've definitely found that. And it's given me different motivation for my music as well, because it's no longer something, I think, like going back to things we were saying earlier as well, about how right back at the beginning I was saying about how I thought community between producers is an important thing that we don't get as much as people in bands and stuff, because if you're in a band or you're in an orchestra or a jazz band or something like that, you work out something cool, you work out a new technique, you're instantly sharing that with people. And I think with music production, there's a real tendency to gatekeep. Like, oh, I found out how to make this awesome synth. And, talking to people about the streaming, people have said this, oh, you don't want to give away all your secrets, this, that, and they're right, definitely. Like, I definitely have my own ways of working, which, if everyone was making the exact same sounds as me, I'd be a bit like, oh, come on, like. So I get it, but I think music production is unique in the fact that it tries to gatekeep everything. Whereas, and I think it gives music was never meant to be that. Music has always been about shared experience. And even if you think about Psytrance, you say it's made for dance floors, it's made for, those are shared experiences. That's what music is for. It's always has been a shared experience, and it always should be. And I think it's made me feel so much better about my music making, knowing that I am sharing it with other people. I'm not keeping everything for myself. It's not some like selfish business thing. It's just me sharing creativity with the world, and that sounds cheesy as anything, and it is, but like I think that's what, and it makes me feel good about it, which again motivates me, and I think makes my music sound different and pushes my musicality in different directions, because I want to like find out something cool that I can share with people. Like I want that. It's something I look forward to. And
Yeah. I also want to mention like two things to this. Like the first thing is that it's also, I think, good to share your production techniques a little bit, to don't get lazy. So if you share like your secrets, you need to come up with something new, which it can be hard, but I think is in the end a really good thing, and it also will always be you who's ahead of the curve, at least what regarding your sound design and your arrangement. Even if you share those tricks, for your album or whatever, you will use new techniques, and people need to implement that, and so you are like a little ahead of the curve. And what I want to mention second to that is that even if the people know how to make your sounds, and even if they remake them in their tracks, they will do hundreds of different decisions. I mean, it's, your music is not just about your sound, it's about all the decisions you're making, like I don't want to have this or that or whatever. And I think even if people would try to do it one-on-one like you, they would still come up at least with something slightly different. So
yeah, 100%. I mean, the number of times I'll like, you'll watch a tutorial on YouTube of like how to make this sound, and then you're like, oh fuck, it sounds nothing like it. I mean, it sounds cool, but it's nothing like what I was trying to do. And that's because every step of the way can just be a fraction different, but it'll make such a big difference. And you can never actually take away your personality from music making. No matter what you're doing, no matter what machinery you're working through, whether it's an instrument, whether it's completely digital, you can't take away your personality from the sounds that you're making, because you can't change who you are, and what you do is who you are, and you can't get rid of that. Someone could even have your exact presets, but the track that they make will be completely different.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I totally agree on this, but at the same time, it's also it still feels hard for me, I think, to share some stuff, because I'm also afraid of like, what if somebody's copying this and having like more success with this and that. But then I think it will never be.
I think you'd have to be Buddha.
Yeah. And also, I think the reason why somebody else maybe then get more successful, it's not because they have my sound or whatever. There will be like several different reasons why this is happening. And I also think this is like a toxic mindset, and it's so much about competition. But this competition is what's making it like really solitude and lonesome often, and this is definitely not what I am looking for.
And I think I guess this all comes into like Spotify and stuff as well. I think this is one of the reasons why Spotify is so damaging, because, well, I mean, he even came out and said, music is like professional sports. If you're not in the top 1%, then you're not going to get anything out of it. Or this, I can't remember the exact quotes, but it was awful. But then, everyone plays into it because everyone's sharing, like, this is how many plays I got over this year. This is how many people favorited my tracks over this year. And it's great. And I get it. It's a celebration of, look, I've made this thing and people have really enjoyed it. And that's great. That really is great. But it just adds another layer to the competition, because then, like, I'm like, oh, amazing. Like, however many thousand, hundred people have listened to this track. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, but Johnny down the road, he got 2 million plays. Like, oh, I'm terrible, And it's that competition. And it adds another level of competition, because it means because people aren't buying the tracks in the same way and everything's done through streaming, it means that the gigs are the only way that people can measure their success. And that's a whole different kettle of fish, and that's got nothing to do really with how many plays you're getting, but you can feel like it. And it's just all this competition which changes the way people are making music.
Yeah, I also, when you say this about the competition, and that it's a nice thing for the artist, the celebration, to post like, I got that much listens and that much likes and whatever. But yeah, it's nice for them, but I think it's worth to think one moment about the bigger picture. Because, for example, I had this, like, now I'm really really happy with my studio room, and I think it's looking really nice, and I have a really nice setup. And I was like, maybe I do a post about my new setup and how much I like it, and clean all my room to make it like super clean and super polished. And of course, it's nice for me that I have this nice studio, but I was like, what do I am adding to the bigger picture? It's maybe then just another picture on social media, which will make some other people feel like, oh fuck man, I should upgrade my studio somehow, or I need to be grinding more, like to think twice about what you add to the whole noise on social media, and if there is like, if it's a benefit to the community or not. And so
that I have two thoughts about that.
mhm.
One is going back to what we were saying earlier about the positivity of streaming. So I think that's kind of that ties in with what we were saying. You can make all these posts on social media, but what do they contribute to the world? Nothing. But when we're streaming, what are we contributing to the world? We're contributing connection between people and the sharing of knowledge, and that's a super different thing. But the other thought that I had about what you just said was, I was thinking about people I've seen recently sharing pictures of their studio, and how instinctively that makes me respect them more as a producer. And I think that's another toxic thing in music production is you see someone with like walls of modular gear, and like they've got tens and thousands worth of synths, and they've got barefoot monitors, and instantly you think, oh, they're a good producer. And that can be really, really toxic as well. And sorry, this isn't like, saying anything bad about you sharing pictures of your studio, because I've done the same thing, and I've done exactly
I
the same
totally get it. I was
And
just thinking of probably Rusko. He's like a
Yeah.
dubstep producer, and there's like a really old master class of him on YouTube, like from the
And it's
2000s.
just on that tiny little computer. And
Yeah, they are filming like the monitor, the screen with a separate camera, and he's doing some stuff, and he's like, you need a bunch of cigarettes and soft drinks, and it's like really in this corner of his room with this shit.
yeah, and he's like,
set
give
up.
your girlfriend 20 quid to get her nails done, and just
Yeah. And man, I think he was like a super successful and well-known producer.
he changed electronic music forever. He like Casper and Roscoe, those guys. They, even not just in dubstep, they introduced electronic music to so many kids. Like people my age, I don't know. Well, in the UK for sure, like it was, electronic music was seen as like uncool. It wasn't really something that was done in like the public eye. And then Casper and Roscoe came along, and suddenly every single kid at school was like listening to Cockney Thug on their phone, and like, yeah, it was amazing. And that was all done just on this terrible like £100 computer just sat in the corner of a room. It's incredible. Like it's
Also, this makes me like it's really humbling to because to see stuff like this, because uh, sometimes I have the feeling, like at least for the production of my own music, every gear I get or all the absorbers or stuff, it's all just for me. It's also possible to make great music on a super basic setup, and even now I'm thinking about upgrading my interface, and I'm thinking at the same moment, but actually I like the music I'm doing right now, and I think it sounds properly okay. So I don't know.
but both are important.
Huh?
I think both are important though. I mean, it is really important for you to be excited about things too. I don't having good monitors won't make your production any better. Having this new synth won't make your production any better. But if it keeps you like really excited about going back into the studio, and it gives you like inspiration for trying new things, and that's really important.
Yeah, it's totally worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's worth any money.
Yeah, I agree. Are you into synthesizers or modular or some of those stuff?
I used to have some synths, but I ended up selling them again because so I had a 101.
I don't know this one. What is a 101?
A Roland. It sounds like Spongle. You play arpeggios on it, and it's Spongle use it in every single track. You hear a 101 and you're just like, oh yeah, I know that one is. So I got myself one of those, and it was my pride and joy. I loved it, but I never actually used it in a track. Never, not once did I use it in a track, because it was a pain in the ass to use, and two, it just didn't really fit with the sounds that I was wanting to make. So I ended up selling it, and then I had a Virus for a bit. But actually, with the Virus, I ended up just being like, this sounds like Psytrance, and and that's great. But that wasn't what I was wanting to do. I've always wanted to not just make lots of FM patterns and things like that, which I love listening to. And don't get me wrong, that's not a criticism. I love listening to it on the dance floor. The energy is amazing of like these big Virus leads, which are like iconic, but it wasn't what was exciting me to make. So I didn't end up keeping that either.
Yeah, I had like the small one, the Snow, Virus Snow, and it was like, I got it used for a fairly cheap price, like 650 or whatever. It was like a really good price, but I had this, and I like never touched it, and I had the feeling I just purchased this chunk of hardware to unlock a VST on my computer. I was like, this does not feel like in a good balance,
And like, don't get me wrong, like I understand that hardware is amazing, and analog gear has a sound, but VSTs are so powerful these days. I mean, the things that you can do, even on Serum, Serum's pretty old now. It's been around for a while, but you can still do stuff on it and think like, I have never heard anything like that before. Can be powerful. It can be, and it's amazing. And I don't feel like there's as much of a need for
hardware anymore. I think
yeah. If anything, I'd say there was more need for hardware in processing.
yeah.
I think if you have like some hardware EQs, some hardware compressors, they can sound wonderful. But I think in terms of actually like synthesis, I don't feel the need for it.
I think it's just where I see really the big pro in hardware is like that it's working with different parts of your brain when you use the stuff with your hands and not have a display and not seeing all those stuff, and it's more about hearing and touching and not so much about what's going on with your eyes. And this can be like really really useful sometimes, but I think also with this more with like effects units like an equalizer, for example. I recently heard some people talking about that they were mapping like the EQ8 onto a MIDI controller and then just setting up the curve for the equalizer by listening and not by watching until it sounded right. And they were saying that they saw a curve. They would never thought that this would be like the right sounding curve because it just was looking wrong to them. And this is, yeah, I think there's a really huge benefit in using hardware or using more your ears and your hands and to ignore a little bit what you are seeing, because I have like this huge spike here and like the cue is whatever looking weird isn't normal or whatever, but if it sounds right,
If it sounds right, it sounds right. Yeah, I'm probably really guilty of that.
Yeah, me too. I just thought it's interesting when I was hearing this. I was like, yeah, man, probably I should try this somewhere and see what my weird curves are looking like.
It's one of those interesting things as well. Like along these lines, with I can remember, when I was learning, and still today, people say, oh, don't boost on EQs. You shouldn't be boosting. You should only be cutting. Boosting like creates artificial, like whatever la di da. But then you see some of like the producers who are like sharing their project files, Mr. Bill, Virtual Riot, all these guys.
They're crazy.
Things are just like, what the hell? What? I would never, if I'd done that on my sound engineering course when I was 17, I would have failed. Like they would have been like, you need to do that again.
Yeah.
But they're like boosting the high end. They're like boosting the bass.
Yeah.
It's just like, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because if it sounds like what they want it to sound like, then that's great.
Yeah, I
That's
totally
perfect.
agree.
That's...
Yeah, Mr. Bill was also hugely influential on my production recently, especially in like sound design stuff, like copying 1,000 times the same effect and see what it's doing, and to intentionally do like the stuff which is which you shouldn't do or whatever, because it's doing weird stuff with the face. But I think especially in sound design, maybe it's just what I'm looking for, to doing weird stuff with the face. And maybe of course, I think like on mastering or in the end when it's getting like really technical, of course you should pay attention to this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I won't name any names, of course, but I can remember I was doing a collaboration with someone, and I was making all these sounds, and I was like, I've been making this track, and I was like, this is really cool. I was like, the sounds in this track I was super proud of. I was just like, this is, unique and cool, and it sounds like what I want to be making. And I had all this like phaser and flanger stuff going on, but it was making these clicks. And instinctively, the other producer like just fixed, quote unquote, fixed all the clicks. And then they sent it back, and they were like, "Did you not hear all the clicks on these sounds?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was beautiful. I loved those clicks." I was like, "Those clicks made the sound, you know. It made it super like pop out and made it really cool." And you know, I'd clipped the volume of them so that the clicks weren't like clipping, and so that they weren't damaging speakers, and so that they weren't like harsh on the ears. But I'd left them there because I loved the way they sounded. It just added to the sound, and I was like, it's just not the same. It's just not the same without them. It just sounds boring without them. But
Yeah, gotcha totally, man. I have some of the stuff like with really stereo stuff sometimes, but this reminds me, like talking about stereo stuff, it reminds me of some really it was like never before I experienced how if the phase isn't coherent at all in the left and right speaker, I don't know if I use these terms correctly, but if the correlation is like really bad on my speakers, it sounds really properly, but then when I was listening through my phone, I had like these sensations that some sounds going up or down an octave, which wasn't like I intended it to sound.
interesting.
And then just by
I said, "Oh, that sounds interesting."
Yeah, it was really interesting, like different speakers, like really different result, not like sounds slightly different and only to trained ears. It was like obvious to anybody listening to this. And then I just went together with a friend. We were really digging deep on this, and changing like with a delay, the like deharsing stuff a little bit on the left and right speaker, and this somehow fixed the problem. But I don't know, I still don't give too much of a shit for for if the meters are looking good or whatever, at least
Nah, it's not worth it.
yeah. I mean, if it's driving you mad, and if it's like really taking out the flow of whatever you're doing, you shouldn't do it, at least in this moment.
No, I really agree with that. Workflow is everything.
Yeah, totally.
If you get bored making a track, the track's going to be rubbish.
Yeah, yeah. And I also a little bit, maybe it's just my imagination driving me mad there, but I have also the feeling that like people can hear it. If I was enjoying making the track, or if it was a struggle. Yeah, so
I mean, there are definitely tracks that I listen to, and I can hear like, oh, they were laughing to themselves when they made that sound. They were having such a good time, and you can feel it.
Yeah. This is like beneficial to, or more beneficial to everybody like you when you're doing the music, and also to the people listening. So yeah, but I think it's hard to have this always in mind, and like to have fun and to put this over everything or give it the right attention, because sometimes I feel like I won't allow myself too much to not wanting to make psytrance, if this makes sense and my English wasn't too bad, because it's a huge part of my identity, and I feel like, oh, I don't want to do psytrance. Like for a week, I getting nervous. I'm like, well, fuck, who am I?
Yeah, it's really tricky.
And then I like force myself a little bit to get back into it, but there were really phases in life where this was clearly not working out, but I didn't allow myself to not make psytrance because it was so much ingrained in my identity. And this is a thing I also want to get better in, and just to make the music I make, and not to put myself too much into this genre, and don't let it take like too much of my identity, because people are changing all the time. I change like all the time. Maybe I won't be forever like a Psytrance producer, and I think I and it's like double psychology. Like if I'm acting like I don't need to be forever a Psytrance producer, then maybe I am.
No, but I think that's a valid point though, isn't it? Because like once the pressure's off, once there's no pressure, you're giving yourself no pressure to do something. It feels so much better to do it. And but also, like I think even if you do have like quote unquote responsibilities with Psytrance, like, oh, I've got these music deadlines coming up, I've got to do this release or that release, and I'm working on an EP and it's already late, and I think working on something else, just something completely random, can be great because, well, A, it takes the pressure off, and two, it gives you more ideas, and you can be like, come back to it fresher and want to do it again because you're not feeling like that's all you're doing. But also, those sounds aren't wasted. If you want to, you can use all the sounds that you made for other things. Like, like I've got like 4 or 5 dubstep tracks which I started on here. I'm never going to finish them. I'm never going to release them. I don't really want to. I had fun making them at the time, but those sounds aren't going to be wasted. I'm going to use them in a Psytrance track.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I do the same thing as well. Yeah. I'm also pretty into like, not like really dubstep, but like this IDM kind of halftime stuff, and I start a lot of those projects, and like eventually 90% of them ending up in like some intro or break or whatever.
And it will be the sickest intro and break ever.
Yeah, man, because people are feeling this. They feel like if I'm really hyped about the intro, and it's also making like a difference to people, like it's the track with this really sick intro. It's not just a high pass filter, kick and bass, and I don't know. Yeah. So man, I think we should probably wrap it so I can prepare for my first stream and stuff. But I really appreciate you doing this with me and coming to this podcast. So is there maybe anything you want to plug or tell people where to check out your social media stuff? A little bit ironically, but yeah.
I mean, I guess the only thing that I'd want to plug is Audiocorner at the moment. I mean, we've both spoken a lot about our streaming because it's something, speaking on your behalf as well, Fred, sorry, it's something we're both doing. And so everyone should check out Audiocorner, Facebook, Instagram, all those things. It's just a bunch of producers streaming their studio sessions, supporting each other, sharing information, sharing knowledge, having fun, chatting to people, building the community. And that's what it's about. It's not for any financial gain. It's not for any other reason than building community, sharing knowledge, and having a good time. So, Audiocorner.
Yeah, I definitely will put all the links in the description.